taken by Sean Marion. We'd like to thank all of you for...
Once again to the Meat Grinder, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut, and I'm your host, Sean Patrick Bowley. With me, as always, is Pete Paguaga. Pete, what's up?
How's it going, Sean?
Hey, how you doing? What a great week of high school football. My God, right off the gate, second half of the season, and we're just killing it. This week, just some amazing results, crazy games, and I think we just got to kind of start off with the top of the show with just some of just the wild results between the FCIAC, which has just become the gold standard of this entire season. I haven't seen a great FCIAC schedule like this, or just results on a weekly basis like this ever, I would say. But the thing that comes closest to it is 2009, when it was like back and forth, Central beating New Canaan and Greenwich losing to New Canaan on a hook and lateral. It's just crazy stuff in 2009. I wrote about it in GameTimeCT. But so we finally have what we want, Pete. We have number one Darien going to play St. Joseph at Dalling Field, 1 versus 2 for the first time since actually the 2019 Class L final between St. Joseph and Hand, won by St. Joseph 17-13 in a game that was their third straight consecutive state championship and in a different class every year. I'm excited. This is kind of like what we wanted. Yeah, Darien Newtown was the big early season one, but this is definitely the one that's going to really define the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think this is the one that was circled on the schedule at the beginning of the year for all of us. We were like, they just got to get here. They just got to get here. We were even talking last week. What if one of them loses? Will they still be 1-2? This game is, for all intent and purposes, this is who is going to be number one at the end of the year. Yeah. The winner of this game, if they both go on to win state titles, will be the number one team at the end of the year.
Yep.
A game in October will decide who is number one at the end of the year, unless crazy things happen. But I mean, that's pretty wild. I mean, for a regular season game to determine who the voters will pick at number one at the end of the year.
Yeah, we've had several of these over the years. I mean, the one that really pops out to me is Hand at Xavier 2012, which, despite everybody's memories, was not a 1 versus 2 game. It was actually number 3 Hand at number 1 Xavier. And I don't, off the top of my head, I think it might have been in Canaan or somebody, or maybe it was in St. Joe, who knows? Maybe it was Greenwich. I don't remember. But it was Hand 3, Xavier 1, and the winner of that game, Hand, would go on to win the Class L title and subsequently the number one team in the state. And fun fact, I've been to every single one of these last few 1 versus 2 games. So how about that? I mean, I would be there Saturday.
That's why I was going to say, that's why I'm not even I'm not going to be there on Saturday. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
So nice of me.
Yeah. We were close. We were close to not having this show up, and that's just been the FCIAC all season long. St. Joseph, let's talk about them. We thought they were going to have a lot of trouble with Ridgefield, and sure enough, going up to Tiger Hollow 2, their auxiliary field, it was kind of a wild game. St. Joseph going up there, and they were up 10-7 early, late in the game, and then Ridgefield comes right back with Keller to Colsey and takes their first lead with about 7 and change left, maybe just a little under 8 minutes left. But St. Joseph, as they've done all season long, right back. Matt Morrissey, the TD pass to Brendan Arroyo, and they take the lead back 17-14. Dallas Morgan with the big pickoff as Ridgefield tries to drive for the go-ahead and eventual winning score. Dallas Morgan with the pickoff, and that is that. St. Joseph wins 17-14, and we thought it was going to be a tough game, Pete. Your guys from Ridgefield, they showed up.
Yeah, in both their losses, they played really well. And there's no such thing as moral victories, especially when you're playing for points in a playoff spot. But I think this helps them going into their next week game or their game this upcoming weekend.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. The FCX games this week are going to be ridiculous. We wrote about it in GameTimeCT. Lou Marinelli walking up to you, and then I called them later. Lou, can we get all these 3 games at Boyle Stadium? And that's not even talking about Staples, which has come back a little bit here. 4-2 now. They're going to play Norwalk the night before. Norwalk is we'll talk about the top 10 in a second, but Norwalk was ranked number 8 in the last poll. But that's a game people are kind of forgetting about. Then you turn around, and it's Saturday. Ridgefield is going to Wilton, and Wilton's Pete pulled off a huge win against New Canaan, their first since 1995, since Tom Fujitani himself was roaming the sidelines at Memorial Stadium. Pete, what happened what happened in this game?
Grant Masterson and Parker Woodring happened, and they were without their running back Jake Chalmers, who only played in the first quarter. He got banged up at the end of the Darien game. Parker Woodring is awesome. He's one of the best wide receivers that I've seen this year. Grant Masterson can move the ball. And this, New Canaan defense that I heard so much about how good they were at this and this, they did not play well at the beginning of the game. They were, Wilton went up 14-0. There was a chance this could have went to 21-0. New Canaan clawed back, and all of a sudden we're roaming the sidelines. I'm talking to Dave Stewart. I'm like, is this going to happen again to Wilton? They're going to take a lead. They're going to hold the lead for most of the game, and then they're going to blow it at the end like they, did against Darien, where Darien was able to score 3 touchdowns in the final 10 minutes to win by 20, but they kept fighting. They had a huge interception with New Canaan inside the 10 on a tip ball. Then, of course, Wilton gives it back 2 plays later, but they were able to hold New Canaan off the board. And then Grant Masterson went to work with the tie game, moving the ball down the field, and lined up for the game-winning field goal from Michael Cooper. I will say this about Wilton. They tried to give the game away a handful of times. They could not stay out of their own way with taking penalties. They faced on their first touchdown they scored was on 3rd and goal from the 24.
Wow.
You can't make those mistakes and expect to win games. And I know Coach D'Annunzio was not happy about, the penalties that his team took. They were able to beat New Canaan. But even Dave Stewart was telling me, they took a lot of penalties against Darien too. And you're not going to be able to do that against Ridgefield in a rivalry game that is really, really heated, even when the teams aren't that good. You can't make that mistake in a game and expect to win or be competitive in it. So I'm pretty sure they'll be working on that this week heading into the Ridgefield game. But amazing win. First win since 1995. I was in kindergarten. EJ D'Annunzio was pumped after that game. Parker Woodring was pumped. Michael Cooper. I love kickers. They are no one ever talks about them unless they make a mistake or they do something great. And after you kick the field goal, everyone's going, I was like, dude, how many high fives did you get? And he's like, that's the most high fives I've ever gotten ever. No one remembers kickers until they do something good or bad. But
and he was a soccer player, right, Pete?
Yep, he came over this year. He wanted to play football. I think he told Dave Stewart he just wasn't really feeling soccer. Wilton's a great soccer school. Yeah, to come over and play football. That normally doesn't happen at Wilton.
Yeah, Lily. went there. Remember?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a great soccer program, boys and girls. And, he came through, though, with a big, I said, sure, I go, man, well, this kid already kicked like a 33-yarder in the first half. I was like, he can kick. Like, if they could get in range, like, but they got close and then they got pulled back and then they had to get close again. Like, they almost gave it away. And I don't want to take away from them, but just like, maybe a different New Canaan team or, from years past would have made them pay for it, but not this New Canaan team.
Have you ever gotten that many high fives before in a game?
No, not even close.
I mean, for this team to come out here after last week and such a hard-fought game against Darien and come out like this, how great is that for this group?
I think it's really deserving that we actually were able to win this one because I feel like a lot of our teammates know that we got snubbed last week, and it was just a great way to win the game and beat a team we haven't beaten in so many years.
No nerves at all?
A little bit. Won't lie to you, a little bit. Then I have my friend Pierce, shout out to Pierce, on the sideline, helping me, and I couldn't have done it without my team, my coaches.
So when we worked Coop out today, he was good from 40 and in. He was solid. I told him we're gonna kick field goal if we need to, and right before Lou called, one of 3 timeouts to freeze him, I pulled him to the side. I said, listen, this is why you stopped playing soccer when you came out to the football team, right? Go win the football game for us and make it as enjoyable as you possibly can this time here. And that's what he did, and I give him all the credit in the world. He's done a great, he missed 1 extra point this year, and he's been phenomenal. So it was great to see him cook it through the uprights, but I still had to sweat out the last 8 seconds.
This is the first win against New Canaan since '95. I mean, what were you doing then? Because I was in kindergarten.
I was probably working for a living, so listen, this is why I came back. I mean, I can't say enough about the kids that gave me that effort in the fourth quarter. Listen, I lost 2 guys. Everybody had their tongue hanging out of their mouth, and I just asked them to just hang on for 1 more quarter. Don't let Darien repeat itself. And to these guys' credit, they played their butts off. Listen, New Canaan's a great football team, and for us to come out of here with a win, just a testament to my kids and my coaching staff.
Canaan, like you said last week, New Canaan's got a lot to work on. Their offense has not been their bread and butter. They can score, but it's just not when they absolutely need. Well, I think when they absolutely need to score, they could probably score. But there was a point there where I thought they were going to win that game, and like as you said, but Wilton pulls it out. And now they go into at least they get home to play Ridgefield. And there's been so much bad blood over the years between these two. And I remember going to see my first game. They used to play on Thanksgiving for a little while. They played this game, and it's wild to think that I was a senior in high school the last time Wilton beat them, 1993. Oh, my goodness. They didn't play for a couple of years after that. I think there was another stretch they didn't play. But I went back and looked at it. There's been plenty of close calls over the years. It's not like Seymour versus Ansonia or anything like that. So, but there's been plenty of close calls, and Wilton certainly has had chances, but like I said in the column this week, maybe this is different. I don't think they've had the type of caliber players that maybe they do have now. They've had some good ones, good ones over the years, and there have been close calls, but I don't know. Will nerves get to them? I mean, certainly they have shown us something these last 2 weeks. They took Darien to the limit, then they beat New Canaan, but now can they finally take down the White Whale, Fujitani Field, 2:00? That's the game you're going to, right, Pete?
I will be there. That is my my concession prize. My consolation prize. But
I would love
the last time my consolation prize was Newtown Darien. So I like my odds.
Oh God. Anyway, another eye-popping result from the FCIAC, which sets up another big game. Speaking of New Canaan and speaking of Greenwich has come all the way back now, Pete. 44-12 over Trumbull, and the question that will never be answered now by me or anybody is who's better, Greenwich, Trumbull, or Shelton?
No idea.
There you go. Greenwich over Trumbull, but Trumbull over Shelton, but Shelton over Greenwich, over Trumbull, over Shelton, over Greenwich. What a wild, the circle of strife, as Ned Griffin likes to call it. Cardinals fresh off their 4-point loss, to St. Joseph. I'm looking at a 3-loss season, and everybody kind of wondering what's wrong with you guys. Can't you win the big game? 13-12 halftime. It's kind of back and forth. Then Jack Wilson, like the second or third play of the game, hits James Babb for a 49-yard touchdown, and we are off the races. Sergo Boone hits a field goal, and then another 72-yard drive. Wilson touchdown. Next thing you know, it's 30-12. You had a John Sciarrata interception, 55 yards. and it just got away from Trumbull, and Corbin Smith, our guy, completely held in check. Couple of early touchdowns, but none of those breakaway things there. And now Greenwich really looking good as they head back home to face New Canaan in a game that the first time those two teams have met since the 2018 Class Double-L Championship, won by Johnny Marinelli's Cardinals over Lou's Rams. And, Johnny's not there anymore, but certainly Greenwich has won the last few games over New Canaan. Can they win it this time to keep their Double-L Championship hopes alive?
It's interesting. So on the pick'em show, I tried to go back. I couldn't find the last time when New Canaan lost back-to-back games in the regular season. Couldn't find it. Could it have happened at the end of the year and then they lost in the first round of the playoffs? Maybe. But I haven't seen it in the regular season. That said, Greenwich this year, if you want to look at their schedule, they opened up with a win. Then they beat Ridgefield 2-0. Loss, win, loss, win. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, the loss to St. Joe's was, again, no moral victories here, but Greenwich played really well in that St. Joe's game. But which Greenwich team is going to show up? I think Greenwich is rolling right now. I think they're really good, but we'll see. It's going to be another good one.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So a few weeks ago, I saw Greenwich play Fairfield Prep at their spot, and I almost fell asleep. I said it straight up. I go, that was a boring game. Turns out I was watching some defensive struggle, this epic struggle of defenses. I mean, two great teams that just weren't going to give an inch. And I think that's what it was looking back now. Sure, it was a snooze fest. There wasn't a lot of points scored, but there's some good defensive plays. And Greenwich really, that was the week after they lost to Shelton. And everyone was like, they're done. They're finished. And they come back. And that's also saying that Fairfield Prep is actually pretty good too, folks. Yeah. I know we gave them a little heck or hell, whatever with Hill House. But, every time, so often, some teams are going to face teams. They're going to give it their best. And I think they just got their best from Hill House that time. They still won the game. Does Fairfield Prep really blow your doors off? And you're like, wow, watch out for this team? No, not really. But it's mostly because it's just the defense that kind of does more than the offense. The offense, you're still waiting for that playmaker. Kind of almost like we were waiting for Greenwich too, but they do have guys, and so does so does Fairfield Prep. Fairfield Prep had a big win over Fitch last week. Nothing doing there. They are rolling back into the picture here.
They got Shelton in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Get your tickets now. Shelton versus Fairfield Prep. Where is that? Is that a Finn Stadium?
That is at Rafferty.
No, it's at Rafferty Stadium. So, guys, I expect everyone to pack that place. We'll be looking at a game of the week next week for that. So, Pete, we haven't even talked about the top 10 heading into this big showdown this week, but let's break it down real quick. Not a lot of change. Number 10 is Killingly. They beat Montville 47-13. Number 9, Shelton, as we talk about, 49-18 over NFA, their buddies. They get Newtown this week in another barn burner Friday at Finn Stadium. Number 8, Norwalk, no change there. They play Resurgent Staples Friday at 7. Ridgefield has fallen from 4 to 7. Might be a little bit too far, but they play Wilton. They can prove it Saturday, 1 p.m. at Fujitani Field. Number 6, New Canaan falls from 3 to 6. Number 5 is Fairfield Prep. They beat Fitch 42-0. They play Harding, which is another game they should probably win. Hall sitting in there at number 4, which, I don't vote Hall that high, but they beat up on Berlin. They just keep winning. Have a Glastonbury team that has struggled for the most part. So that's number 4, Hall. Number 3, Greenwich. They were 5. They bump up with 2 losses, which I don't remember the last time I've seen a number 3 team with 2 losses sitting there.
Not when the number 6 team has 1 loss.
Yeah. No, certainly not. I mean, I've never seen a 4-2 team or a 2 team with 2 losses over an unbeaten team, unless that unbeaten team was from the CTC or something like that. Crazy. Then, of course, number 2, St. Joseph, and number 1, Darien, the big one. Number 1 at number 2 this Saturday, Dalling Field. And coming on to talk about it with us right now is columnist Jeff Jacobs. And joining us to talk about that big game, the game of the century, or is it the game of the century 2, or what is it, Jeff? I don't know.
I like to call them game of the year and then game of the year. I've already had one with Darien Newtown and now this one this week. And then as we get to the end, then I up the ante to game of the century.
Right. So joining us is Jeff Jacobs, our columnist, who's actually, believe it or not, seen both Darien and St. Joseph, whereas Pete's only seen St. Joe many times, and I haven't seen either live other than film, so which is just kind of a weird thing. So you're in a unique position to give us your thoughts on the game of the century, of the year, of the decade, of the whatever.
All right. I've seen Darien play Newtown and wear them down, and then I saw them on the day.com game where they just humiliated NFA. And then I saw St. Joe's come back against a really good Greenwich team. So that's sort of my basis. I kind of listed the pros and cons of this, and I've come up with way more pros for St. Joe's. And I have been voting Darien number one. First of all, they won 29 in a row. And I know that's not this year's team, but they haven't lost since September 2017. That's huge.
18.
They've won that many games for a reason in a row.
18.
They've come back twice in games. They've shown more flexibility to come back in big games than anybody. They came back on Greenwich, and they came back this past weekend. Their quarterback, Mr. Morrissey, can beat you with both his feet and his arm. He's a clutch player. Number 5, Maxwell Warren, is a problem for anybody. And if teams want to stop him, there's Arroyo and Hutchinson. So that I think their versatility is born of a number of quality players. They have as good a coach. I think they probably have the best. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they have the best coaching staff in the state. If not the best, I can't name you.
They're up there. They're certainly in.
I mean, there are a lot of guys really do a good job there. They have home field advantage. Although in that park, I've seen the other side load up pretty good, like Greenwich the other week. They load up really good on the other side, so there's noise. They also have, adding to the home field advantage, is a public address announcer who is nothing short of a homer that just completely urges the crowd to cheer and all these things. Little disconcerting. I would call for a little more restraint there. I understand it's exciting, but I just call for a little more restraint. So that's some of the things I say. Plus that kid Dallas Morgan, it seems like every game ends now, the big game, with him picking one off to seal it. Dallas, Dallas. But I'm going to give you a big thing on the Darien side. 2 big things, actually. I'll make that 3. The key player to the game, David Ivanchik, and what he can do with his defensive line to help stop and contain St. Joseph's. This is St. Joe's 3rd game in a row that is just titanic. First, Greenwich, then Ridgefield, and now Darien. You can play the battle-tested angle or the worn-out angle. I think there's some guys banged up and worn and somewhat worn out. I see that as a factor in this game. And then my number 3 factor, Ty Comiskey. I know Cameron Edwards is a more dynamic player, and I know Victor Rosa up in Bristol Central is a more dynamic player. But this guy Comiskey, he's rolled big and hard and fast. He's got, as I've watched him play twice now, at first what catches your eye is he's just one tough son of a gun. And his speed. But as I watched him a little more now in 2 games, I've been impressed by his vision and his surprising quickness. Not exactly, that's a little different than just outright foot speed. I see him pounding and pounding and pounding. I want to see St. Joe's hold him when it really matters. And so that is my view of the game. A lot more pluses on the St. Joe's side. And I will say again, I have been voting Darien number one. And at this point, St. Joe's, it's really 1A and 1B. Yeah. And I, as part of a column, I think I could tell this right now. I'm writing a column for the next 2 days, going to the day's coaches poll and finding the coaches who are voting, who, unlike us at GameTimeCT, the geniuses of GameTimeCT, the monolith, the great genius who have Darien, the coaches have it overwhelmingly in favor of St. Joe's. It was 9-3 last week. And I've talked to 4 coaches, and Mars Petraccio from Trumbull and Brian Mazzone from Stafford have St. Joe's, and Tom Brockett and Andy Guillen, Tom Brockett from Ansonia and Andy Guillen from Xavier have Darien. All 4 of them warned me that it's very close, toss-up game. No, none of those 4 just came away, saying, "Oh, definite." Brian Mazzone did say that the victory over Greenwich convinced him to change to St. Joe's. So that's sort of where we're at, and I'll continue to hunt down some more, and also hope that Mr. Coach Delvecchio will he's on the poll. It would be interesting if he will come clean on his.
Yeah, we should have asked him last week. We had him on last week. We should have asked him who he's voting for.
So it's
one of those things like, who do you vote for if you're the coach of one of the teams that's either one or the other? You vote for the other team to give your team motivation, or do you vote for your team because you think they're number one? It's kind of.
That's why he's the coach, Sean. That's why why we're here yapping. But that'll be interesting. So I think it's going to be.
Jeff, I've found over the years of the coaches poll and the writers poll, the writers and the coaches don't normally agree on these issues. Who's number one? If it's between 2 teams, they usually go the opposite of the writers. I believe the coaches, they might have gone Xavier when it was Xavier Massick in 2010. But, there's a good coaches. I mean, they're a little kind of contrarian, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, maybe. Yeah. As you're saying before, the 2 has beaten the 1 in the last 3 1-2 matchups that we know of. And I will say this: you and I were in the press box at Willowbrook Park in New Britain, all fired up for St. Joe's versus Hand. The number 1, number 2 game, and I believe Pedro was over at the Newtown game, and we just sat there and said, how could we be at the 1-2 game and somehow be at the wrong game?
How could we be at the right game, but actually the wrong game at the same time?
That is, but that's part of our charm.
Yeah.
Thinking that we're right and then being proven wrong.
I have been to all 3 of these games in the past 12, whatever it was. I don't know when the last one was before the 2010 game between Xavier and Notre Dame. That kicked off the 2010 season. Notre Dame was kind of a surprise number 1 to finish 2009 because it was going back and forth between all the FCX schools that were vying for it. It was like Bridgeport Central beat New Canaan. New Canaan beat Greenwich 35-34 on a hook and lateral play, and then turned around the next week and got beat 42-7 by Central, Bridgeport Central, when they were number 1, and then it became back and forth, and finally Staples lost to Cheshire. Nobody could give it to Cheshire, so they gave it to Notre Dame, which beat Cheshire, which is weird.
Right.
So they came in number 1, maybe a different team, but then that started the Xavier dynasty. And then the next time it happened, 1 versus 2, Darien beat Southington. Jay Rose, Mark Ivanchik played in that game. They played and they smoked Southington, and then they won 3 straight. St. Joe had already won 3. They won 3 straight by winning that game. It's a fascinating, interesting, 1 versus 2 the last 10 years.
I'll just close it out by saying this: if St. Joe's does win, they're going to roll right to the end, and I don't think anybody can dispute if they win against Darien and go on to win the Class L. I don't know if there's anybody that can dispute that they'd be number 1. Right. Darien, on the other hand, still has with New Canaan in the regular season, and then with then the Class L playoffs, they still have a long road to hoe.
Yeah, and that would be really interesting to see who could. I mean, I think there's teams that could beat Darien maybe in Class Double L. We'll see, but I don't know about L. I do not know about L. I think if St. Joe wins this game, they're the odds-on favorite. Just like you said, I think they roll to that championship there. The last thing, just where does a fan go? This FCAC weekend is just ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it, Jeff. You've been on record saying it's just they are exactly the way we're portraying them as. It's just best league in the state.
Well, go to your favorite team. It is. I've always, before I got here, I'd always look at FCAC and say, yeah, they're good, but are they that good? Well, this year, they're that good.
Yeah. So very, very fascinating. But we will see you at Dalling Stadium. I will see both teams for the first time at Dalling Field on this Saturday, and lots to talk about. There'll be lots to see on GameTimeCT. We're looking forward to all of Jeff's columns and a lot of the videos that we'll be doing on this game. So if you're looking for more previews, certainly stick with us. We'll also be making our picks on this game. You heard Jeff give you a rundown of what he thought, but now it's time for him to pick. So you can check that out very shortly. Thanks, Jeff, for joining us. We'll see you on there on Saturday.
Thanks, Jeff.
This is all about the FCAC this week. And last week, it was kind of a little bit also about the NVL. It was finally, Seymour beat Ansonia. And I even picked Seymour to win, beating Ansonia for becoming the first NVL team in 101 games or 102 games 101 games to beat the Chargers. And we got the shirt up, pick off on the first drive. Ansonia goes down and scores. Our guy, Daryl McKnight, and Seymour just looked like a deer in headlights from the get-go. Pete, it was your first time at Jarvis Stadium. You actually lived down the street. How the heck was this your first time?
When I lived down the street, I was working for the Record Journal, and Sheen wasn't in S yet, so there was no Sheen Ansonia crossovers. And obviously Ansonia doesn't play in the Alliance, so there was never any reason for me to go, which was pretty crazy. But that was such a cool atmosphere. I mean, the way that they have the fans all lined up around, they have stands and stuff, but there's a lot of standing room only, and you're kind of like right on top. Like when we were in the end zone, there were people like 2 feet behind us, 3 feet behind us. It was really cool. And there was a who's who of who was there. Yeah. Right, Amity coach Craig Bruno was in attendance. Former Derby coach in Ansonia. Assistant coach George French was in attendance. Jack Coughlin and his dad John were in attendance. It was a real who's who. Some guy was dressed up like Michael Myers walking around.
Yeah.
It was really creepy. I don't know if you saw, I took a photo of him.
I didn't see it, but
I was like, this is weird. I threw it in the gallery. But I took a photo of him, and then he turned around and just stared at me. Now, if you know me, I hate scary movies. I hate horror movies. My Halloween movies that I watch, Hocus Pocus. That's more of a Molly pick, but really good. Halloween Town, which is like a Disney Channel original movie. I don't like scary movies in the slightest. So I take a photo of this Michael Myers guy.
Night of the Living Dead is.
Dude, I don't do scary movies. When I was at the Record Journal, I used to do all these weird videos on camera. I would go to like different restaurants and all this crazy stuff. And they were like, you have to do the Trail of Terrors. Like go through the Trail of Terrors with the camera. And I was like, absolutely not. That's where I'm putting my foot down. I do not do scary. I do not do jump scares or whatever. So I take a photo with this Michael Myers guy, and he just turned around and stared at me. And I was like, holy crap, he's going to follow me to my car. So I got really scared, and I kind of made my way to the other side of the field.
I missed the Trail of Terror. I haven't been there. I wanted to go this year. It's just hard to get to this time of year. But if you haven't gone to Trail of Terror in Wallingford, it's great. I went with my friend Whitney Kidder, who used to be at the Connecticut Post photographer for us. She and I went like back in like 08, 09 or something crazy like that. It's been a long time.
No,
so, it was amazing. It was great. If you don't get advance tickets, you're in big trouble. But
I went to one haunted house once as a kid. I was in middle school, and getting chased by a guy with a chainsaw is not funny. I know it's entertainment. That's not funny. I find zero humor in any of that. That doesn't do it. Like, even a couple years ago when the movie It came out, and there were people like walking around in like the clown costumes. Yeah. No, I was driving to Lyman Hall once, and I saw one of the red balloons was like hanging on a sewer grate, and I drove the long way to get to Lyman Hall. I was like, I'm not doing this. This is not fun for anyone.
How about the clown scare we had about 2 years ago? Oh boy.
Yeah, they for the movie It. There were people walking around the
just clowns just hanging out on a street corner.
Yeah, well, there were clowns just walking around the Meriden Green. They were all dressed up like the heck's that clown's name? Something wise, Pennywise.
Love Halloween. I love Halloween. I
love Halloween. I love candy.
Yeah.
Dude, this year we're throwing up a movie projector. We're gonna play movies. We're gonna have some good candy, so we get a good reputation in the neighborhood.
Sounds good, Pete. Look at you, domesticated. Yeah. Anyway, well, getting back to Ansonia. Look, Daryl McKnight was just ridiculous. He had 258 yards, 4 touchdowns. Seymour, deer in headlights. What does this say about Ansonia? The doubters. Here's McKnight actually talking about the doubters. And, and what it's like to be, an Ansonia Charger.
I just knew that I had to come in strong. It was a big game, big players make big time plays in big games. I know I had to step up to the plate. My team, we all focused from day one, Monday. We just came together and we got the dub.
You said in the first game that you kind of heard the chirping, Ansonia, they got, they're small, they're too little, they don't have enough guys on the roster, and you guys really seem to take that hard now. But, you still hear it?
No. I think we quiet down the haters a little bit. I feel no pressure. I know what my team's capable of. We know what we got to do to get the dub. We know we have to stick together. I feel completely no pressure in big games at all.
What's it mean to play Ansonia football to a town?
It means a lot. Ansonia is a family. Everybody look out for each other. The crowd, people on the streets, they support us. Even if we're not in our uniforms, they know who we are. They tell us, how you doing? Keep up the good work. Ansonia is just a family, a big family.
So, look, I don't see Seymour losing the rest of this year in the NVL. Unless Naugatuck wants to show up. They already beat Holy Cross, which I think is the other best team in the league, and they already beat them by 3 TDs. Maybe Naugatuck shows up. I'd love to see it, meaning just give us something, but I don't think so. It's not happening. Class S is a different matter. One team we have not talked about much, Pete, and I know this is going to rank you a bit, but, look out for Bloomfield, okay? Because Bloomfield is just crushing people. And, the word is from coaches who look at the Class S is that Bloomfield is certainly back on the warpath, so to speak, and are probably one of the best teams in S. Will they play Ansonia? We'll see. I don't see anyone beating Ansonia. So I got to see a crazy game. Now, we talked a little bit last week about Morgan and Coginchaug, Pete. Turns out I've never been to the Peters Complex in Morgan. So I figured this was a great time to do it. And what a show I got. And we talked to your boy and my boy now, Drew Nye, who put on one of the best passing performances in school history, next to his one the week before. I think they both kind of have a special place now in school history. Last week, he was 38 of 49 for 517 yards and 5 touchdowns in a victory over SMSA against unbeaten Coginchaug, Pete. He was 38 again, completions of 54 this time for 466 yards, 7 touchdown passes, and they just pull away from Coginchaug and hand Coginchaug its first defeat. Now, I thought it was going to be a good game, but Nye was electric. Now, did he throw the ball, extend the field downfield? No, not exactly. But his receivers were all great. Coginchaug had no answer. Nick Fatamika was the best of the bunch, but they had a bunch of other guys all making plays. And Morgan 50-20 over Coginchaug, which had only given up 21 points to that point in Mike Eagle's homecoming. Remember, he was a Morgan coach back until 2015. Morgan looks like that they are put themselves in firm position there in the Class S playoff race. And let me just tell you, let me just show you. This is Drew Nye. It was like me and him are all buddies. I guess after the game, he it was just like, hey, can I talk to you? Hey, Sean, what's going on? Hey, I go, yeah, I want to get you in the scoreboard. Hey, let's check it. Let's do the scoreboard. And we got a nice picture there. I got to see Peter, the former coach. Remember, he was a coach at Morgan. He did not have a few years with his other quarterback son, JP Nye. But he's taking a back seat. Kevin Sullivan coming over from Newington as the OC, now taking over this job. A really enthusiastic guy, and he was all fired up. That I was there. They rolled out the red carpet. I felt a little kind of embarrassed. They're like, oh no, you don't need to, It was humbling. They were like, here, what do you want? You want some cheeseburgers? Want some food at halftime? Here, you got to do some work. You got to do work. Pete and I was great. Those guys were great. I appreciate it. But, all props to Morgan. I mean, that was a great performance. And, you start to talk playoffs around some of these guys. They get a little nervous. They got to bye, but the road looks very good for the Huskies right now to make their first state playoff berth in 2015. And here are some of those guys after the game.
Did you ever envision a game where you would throw 7 touchdown passes?
I mean, it's always been in my mind. Like, I knew we got playmakers on this team, and I knew coming in, like, we can put up points and we can put up stats. I mean, that's our goal of every week, to try to do the best we can. And my guys showed out tonight. It's so great to have a versatile receiver core, and we can make plays left and right. Even Nick Schmidt and Cam Johnson, 2 names that we don't know, that made plays tonight and kept us in check. So I'm proud of every one of you. I can't do it without them. So
yeah, they really worked hard for you. You would throw them over the middle, and they would take it the other way.
Yeah, no, the yards after catch tonight was just amazing. I'm proud of these guys. I would not be here without them. It's just such a good group of guys I'm around with. So
what has just happened in the last 6 quarters?
I mean, just like last week we said, we never give up. And this team, like, we talk about change the culture, and like Morgan football's history hasn't been the best, but for us to turn this culture around, and like last week is a perfect example of it. Like we don't hold our heads, which I'm proud of these guys.
What's changed in the last 6 quarters? Like, all of a sudden you're scoring 94 points in the last 6 quarters, or not 6 quarters, but you know what I mean.
Honestly, the biggest thing is, the conversation me and Drew had, was really he was trying to force a lot of things. He was trying to take the big play every time, the big play, like he wanted that. And we just tried to say, hey, let's just take what the defense is going to give us. If they're gonna be afraid to take away the deep ball, we'll take the hitch. Our guys, at some point, you're going to have to say, hey, we don't want to give up that hitch, and they're going to come up, and then the big plays will come. And, especially last week, he did a great job of just battling back and keeping everybody rallied around and fighting back. It was unbelievable. Hey, this is what I said. Unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. So.
There were some other wild games, Pete, going on. Let's just briefly start with your Friday night. Now, you started off at Bristol Central, and you're like, I need to get some photos for
Victor
Rosa, who had just coming off they had a bye. They were coming off their wild victory over, their back and forth victory over Hartford Public, 52-48. And it was encore time over there at Bristol Central. Victor Rosa, 406 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns. The 8 touchdowns is, I believe, a school record, but the 406 yards is not even close to being a school record, because they used to have a guy named Tim Washington who was very good. But Bristol Central is just, with Victor Rosa, just absolutely crazy. Pete, what happened over there?
So I stayed for 2 drives. I wanted to get some photos of Victor because we don't have photos of him. And I kind of wanted to see him in action. And nothing really on their schedule jumps out the rest of the way. But the first drive, a big run by their running back. I forgot what his name is, but he had a big run. And then Victor, next play, like 25-yard touchdown. And I was like, oh, okay, complete opposite side of the field. I'm like, great. Then the next drive, great punt by Talon, pins Bristol Central on the 5. And Rosa takes the snap, goes around the end, and is gone. 95 yards to the house. Snapped a couple of Selly photos, and I was like, all right, I'm out of here. This game's going to be a blowout. Little did I know.
Yeah.
There would be 68 to what, 50? 53?
68-50.
I mean, what a game.
It doesn't quite match the all-time point total record.
Yeah.
So it's like, 150 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I didn't Torrington and Sacred Heart put up like a combined 160 points. But he's so much fun to watch. He's electric. Yeah. He is absolutely electric.
And Talon did a nice job keeping pace, but geez, like I said,
when you score 50 points, you think you're going to win the game.
Yeah, when you score 60.
I mean, if you'd have told Coach Xavier, Mitch heading into that game, hey, you guys are going to score 50 tonight against Bristol Central, I'm sure you would have been pretty thrilled.
But, Bristol Central's defense, it's, giving up 152 points in 6 games this year. And it's like over 100, just about 100 in 2 games. It's I would be a little worried. I know Jeff Faising is very worried. But they're looking really good for a Class L playoff berth. Other ones that were wild. Immediately after that, you went to see Maloney versus Xavier. And I guess Maloney, Pete, looking for some respect, starts off before the game, running over Xavier's sign. I mean, is that how you want to get respect?
Yeah, they ran through the cheerleader line that had the sign that Xavier was going to run out of, which was an interesting move, I think, to say the least. And I know some people were not too thrilled about that.
No.
It was very bizarre to watch. And then they try to plant the flag at midfield, but it's turf. So obviously the flag doesn't plant because, it's turf. But, then I'm kind of sitting there and I'll admit this. I texted Bowley. I told him what happened and I was like, Xavier by 21. Well,
yeah,
I know nothing because Maloney absolutely pummeled Xavier 35-0 at halftime. Look, they might, the respect I think they got was on the field. If that's what they were playing for, because they're good. I mean, Angel Arce looked awesome. 5 touchdowns. He looked like he did 2 years ago when he was a sophomore. I mean, he looked like an absolute stud. And they got guys, Tylee Flowers, Ian Graham didn't have the best game. He's their best receiver. They have guys, Michael Reddick on D, the Xavier transfer. He had a nice little homecoming at Xavier, played really well. The Xavier defense the Maloney defense was flying around. Big hits, limiting Xavier. I mean, look, the game flipped. It's hard to say when you play 48 minutes, what was the big play of the game? Xavier went right down the field when they got the ball and, threw an interception on the 1 yard line. Yeah. If that's a touchdown, it's a whole different game. You know what I mean? But Maloney gets the ball, marches 99 yards and scores. And all of a sudden that set the tone. They didn't punt in the first half. They got the ball 5 times and scored 5 touchdowns. Emphatically. I was very impressed by the way that Maloney played on the field that day.
Yeah. I mean,
they are not the team. They are not the team I saw against Berlin, and they are not the team that I saw against Southington.
It feels great. Having the bye week, we all were itching to play. Practice was clean. We were ready for this game, and we just came out and we played. We executed the whole time.
A lot. I mean, that bye week gave us an extra week to prepare for them, and that cover 3 look that the scout team gave us was a good look. So we just came out here and dominated like we were doing in practice.
It looked like you had a slow start to the season this year with, maybe you didn't have your best games early in the year. Did something change for you this year where, all right, it's starting to come back now?
Yeah, I was having a downhill part of the season, and coach said second half pick it up. So I said, all right, I took on the challenge and I picked it up second half of the season.
You went to Xavier, you transferred back to Maloney for this year. How excited were you to come back here and see them on the schedule?
I was so excited. It's so all love for me. I still love all the boys on that team, so it was great to play against them.
They used that bye week, and they got better, and they look really good. They got Hall, I believe, next week or the week after.
New Britain this week.
Yeah, they got New Britain this week, and then they got Hall. And that game, sign me up. Yeah. That game's going to be awesome.
Yeah, Hall, actually, speaking of which, they stayed unbeaten. Matt
flying
Farber,
too close to the sun, Sean.
Yeah, still flying close to the sun. They're not close enough for Pete's comfort. Matt Farber had a great game, 9 catches for $128 and having a game-winning interception. And Leah Pereira had a nice game too. And that's a game Berlin effort there, but they just couldn't hold the 10-point lead. And Hall goes, once again undefeated. At this point, I don't see Hall. They got Maloney. Maybe they lose that game. I don't see them losing in the other games. Glastonbury, New Britain, and Conard, even Conard in their big
Conard's
showdown.
always a coin flip. That, week before Thanksgiving game is always big. But the Maloney game, I think, is the one that, at worst, I think Hall goes 9-1.
Yeah. Just looking at Class L rankings here, yes, very fascinating. Hall, Darien, Shelton Prep, they're playing next week, as we discussed. Then you have Norwalk, Newtown with a big win over Cheshire. That was huge. They got Shelton this week. Newtown, I thought, was really impressive versus Cheshire. I think Cheshire's exit stage left right now. Then creeping up in there, Southington, you have Greenwich at 9 right now. West Haven, which plays Notre Dame this week with a big one. Staples playing Norwalk with a chance to get back in this race after being written off since they lost since they got obliterated by Cheshire in week 3. So very fascinating in Double L. Class L rankings, we talked about that a bit. really interesting development here. ATI knocking off Cheney Tech, which drops to 8 now with their first loss. So now one of the tech schools that we were railing about, and it's been kind of an interesting who's, what's the opinion here? And we got yelled at a little bit by some of the tech guys saying it's not their fault. But listen, I mean, nobody's saying it's your fault. We're just saying like that it shouldn't be this way. That's what we're saying. But Cheney Tech loses. Massac, even though they lost, still hanging in there. Wilton creeping up the standings. Woodstock, down there a bit. Wethersfield's coming back a little bit with a nice win over Glastonbury this week. Bristol Central. So, again, as it looks like they got Windsor in there and Naugatuck. So that's interesting. Then Class M, Killingly back they're the only undefeated team remaining right now. And then you have Plainville, Granby Canton, Pete, and Rockville. Rockville now rocketing up to 5 after beating Granby Canton 42 to what the heck happened in there, Pete?
The Rock is back, man. I mean, look, they've won 4 straight. It's not like, they were coming off a loss. They lost their opener and have absolutely just rolled opponents the rest of the way. And Amir Knighton for Rockville, he rushed the ball 4 times for 104 yards and a touchdown. He had 10 tackles and 3 sacks. I believe his older brother, Nazir, was on the team in 2019 as a junior, and he was a really good player for that team. Obviously, he didn't have a senior year, but the boys up in Vernon are rocking, and good luck, Coginchaug.
Yeah, Class M certainly fascinating now. Rockville in there showing itself. Avon with a nice win over Farmington. They're playing Hartford Public this week. A very interesting game. Avon. Tabor Angle had a nice game. And then there's also, we have Coginchaug, then we also have Ellington, and then Branford, the guy where we talked a little bit about. We talked a little bit about Branford a few weeks ago when they defeated Notre Dame. And joining us this week now to talk about his team is Coach John Limone. Joining us now is the 8th or 9th year. I think it's 9th year, 8th season as head coach at Branford Hornets. My God, has it been that long? John Limone joining us with the Hornets, 5-1. My goodness, Branford flying high. John, how you doing? Thanks for joining us here on the Meat Grinder.
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me. It's been a good ride so far. So,
yeah, tell us a little bit about it. I mean, you start off with a 21-0 loss to Amity. It's kind of like no big thing. But now you guys won 5 straight, including a 15-12 wild win over Notre Dame West Haven, which I think I'm pretty sure we tried to figure it out. Was your first win over Notre Dame ever, which was great. And it's really kind of put you in great position here as we get into the, start to round the corner here into the final stretch.
Those first 3 games, I think, were really pivotal for us to kind of figure out who we were and what kinds of kids we have. And, as far as how we're going to go about trying to win games on Friday nights. So those first 3 were all close. I think one of the best things that it showed us early on was even against Amity, we were down 21 points for pretty much the whole game, and we didn't quit. Our kids played hard the whole time, and Foreign, we were down late, I think 4 minutes to go, 4 minutes and change, and we were able to take the lead late in that game. And I believe against Notre Dame, same kind of thing. We were down. We got a big play out of our captain, one of our captains, David McDonald, on a touchdown pass. And, just were able to take that lead late. I mean, it turned into a complete circus that game, at the end of the game, because they're so dynamic and they have so many good players, and their quarterback especially was, an absolute heart attack. So, those first 3, I think, went a long way for us in terms of establishing, kind of, it's overused, but our identity, and not necessarily for the coaches, but for the kids.
Yeah, well, explain to me about Notre Dame first one. This is a school that, it's notorious, as a lot of these private schools are, of grabbing Branford kids, and I don't know how many you got there now, or any, if any at all, but, I've known over the years a lot of great Branford kids, I've gone elsewhere. But still, I mean, that's still kind of a rivalry in that sense, even if you don't have anyone there. So just tell me it looks like your kids are just completely fired up about the whole school, kind of got nutty over it. What was the atmosphere like, and how much did that change, like kind of like the direction and how your kids might have felt about themselves?
I think we kind of had a point during the week, where it was obvious to our kids during the week of practice that we kind of had to stop, and this has kind of become a theme. We got to stop judging who we're playing on Friday night based on anything other than their high school football team. I think there's going to be games that we're, and I'm not talking about this season, I'm talking about always, that you're supposed to win. And there's going to be games that you're supposed to lose. And then, of course, there's going to be the games where everybody says, oh, it's a pick 'em. This could be, and I think for our kids during that week, and I think for myself also, there's the idea here, we just got to go out and just play the game and stop. Don't make it something that it's not. We played really well that night. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And Joe's got a good football team over there. I mean,
he does. We were a little worried about them more than wondering, like, wow, Branford might be good. We were kind of more like, what's wrong with Notre Dame? You know what I mean? But now that you look back on it, they beat Wilton, which just turned around and beat New Canaan this week. If you do the transitive properties, it's like
Branford's better than New Canaan.
Yeah. Branford might beat New Canaan.
No, there's no transitive properties in football, fortunately and unfortunately. But I think that our kids played really, really hard that night. I think his kids played really, really hard that night. I think the ball just, the ball bounced well for us that night. So.
Well, tell us a little bit
about it. I don't want to downplay it. It was a huge win, and it was really exciting. It was huge for our program and huge for our community and for our school. But at the end of the day, too, I mean, like we played really well, and we were able to catch a couple breaks and make a couple plays when we really needed to.
A tackle on the 1 yard line is definitely making a play when you needed
to. For sure. I mean, now. And that was John Frawley. What a play that kid made. But that was the tale of that game. I mean, we just had guys that it's become a cliche in football, right? But they're just doing their job. I'm a Giants fan, unfortunately. So
I was gonna say that was very Belichick of you.
I'm a Giants fan, and I'm a big Logan Ryan fan. And they said something yesterday about Logan Ryan said we got to mow our own lawn. And everybody's just got to mow their own lawn. And I think that game for us was that's what we did in the game. And I think it helped our team kind of understand that if we're going to be successful, those are the kinds of games that we have to play. And those are the kinds of efforts that, that's the kind of effort we have to give to win. So I think it was a big turning point. I mean, I know that there's a lot made out of private school, public school, and the scheduling. And then there's all that kind of stuff that goes on that's way above coaches' pay grades.
Yeah.
We just coach the kids that we have. Some kids are going to go look for opportunities in other places. And there's nothing I can really do about that. I just have to coach the kids I have. And I have to create, a place where kids can be successful and a place where kids take pride in what they're doing. And if I worry about what other places are doing, whether it's private or public, we're not going to get where we need to go. So
the one thing I'm looking at your schedule is very interesting. It was the start of a 4-game homestand. Like, I know this isn't baseball, but that 4-game homestand, I mean, you guys won all of them. 35-7 over Bethel. 34-0 over Lyman Hall, and then 41-24 over Brookfield. It's not exactly murderer's row there, but that's a great way to kind of come right back. I mean, you could have just been like, hey, we're the greatest team ever and not done your jobs. And the next thing you know, you lose again. Again, that's been a good spot. You got Avon, which is in 2 weeks, which is tricky. And then you got a kind of an interesting rest to go. You got Guilford, you have Law, and then you have obviously East Haven, which that game, no matter what the records are, everyone always says, especially that it's probably the most competitive Thanksgiving Day game out there, or at least one of them.
It's a really strange schedule. And again, I think like this year has been really interesting because you don't know a lot about some of these teams that were playing outside and with the Alliance. So like Brookfield's really well coached outfit. And I lost a lot of sleep getting ready for them. Not that you don't prep for Lyman Hall the same way. We prep for everybody the same way, but there's a familiarity with teams that are in your league, like where, you kind of know what it's like, what the kids are probably like, what the ride is like for those kids on a Friday coming to your place, or are you going to them? I mean, next week we go to Avon. I've never been there.
I think they still have the grass field.
Oh, they just got turf.
Oh, okay.
They just got turf and lights.
But there's those elements of it. And I think with this season also, because you can't look back at a 2020 record and have any singular idea of what anybody is or what what their program is like. It's a really tricky year. Brookfield, like I said, that kept me up at night, getting ready for those guys. And it was a rough go of it. I think we were down 17-14 at halftime, and then we were able to get some turnovers and rattle off. I think I want to say 28 straight points or something like that. And then we gave up another one late. But again, that was a competitive game the whole way. And it was one of those things where even when we scored, to make it 40, because it was 41-17 at one point, there was 3 minutes left in the game, but you're still kind of, because they were competitive and well coached and all those things. And that's been the tricky thing about all this. You really don't know. And our kids are really good at just doing their job. And honestly, that's what I tell them every day is like the number one thing we're good at is effort, so to be honest with you guys, and I tell the kids this, and, I don't know if we're a good football team. I really don't. But as long as they keep doing this kind of thing and with the effort, and the preparation, then we could do some things. But
tell us about your team. Like, who's been really kind of leading the charge here as you guys, look
Here's
for
a
that
really,
first
really-
playoff for the first time in a while.
Well, we got a long way to go before we get there, Sean. So, but listen, here's an interest. I think this is a
Not
really
too long though. It's not too long, Coach. Come on.
But no, but
you're right.
No, but here's the thing, and you mentioned some of these games is we play Avon again. I've never been there. I don't know what that. I know they have a big quarterback who's a tremendous athlete, and they have a very, from what I heard, I haven't even seen them really yet, other than Max Prep's highlights. But they have a really big quarterback who's athletic, and he presents some problems. And then once that game is over, whatever the result of that game is, you go into 3 games that are league games. They're tier 3 games. There's a lot of history in those games. You look at our game against Guilford and going back. Now, we didn't play them in 2018 for whatever reason, because of a scheduling thing. But if you go back to, I know I'm going back a while, but if you go back to 2015, we won 14-7, I think. But it was a 1-score game. I think that was the score. And then the next year, I think we won 15-14. And then in 2017, they took it to us pretty good. And then we didn't play them in 18. And then in 19, we lost 20-19. So
anything can happen. I get it,
and
man. I get it.
In the same way. Those are all emotional. They've always been emotionally charged, like, dare I say, rivalry games. I mean, and then East Haven is East Haven. I mean, it's, for a lot of guys in Branford, that's it. That's the Super Bowl.
All I'm saying, Coach, is you're in a great spot, and you win another 2 games or 3 games here, maybe even just 2, you'll be in a really good spot But let's not go there.
We've looked ahead and spoken ahead about the Branford program, and we may have jinxed them 2 years ago. That's all I'm saying. So let's not do it this time.
No, I know. I understand. I
No,
know.
listen, I mean, the other thing that's important, and no offense to you guys do a great job, is the players need to worry about, what we're telling them, and the outside noise and all that stuff. But these guys are great. So you were asking me, who's been great.
Tell me about them.
Here's the stat that, and I actually was like really, really proud of this stat. When we figured out all the box scores and the scoring after the Brookfield game, in our last 2 games, we've had 9 different players score a touchdown.
Wow.
Which I think, I'm not saying that we're, the greatest show on turf. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt are out there. But what I am saying is that it just shows that we play as a team. And it could be anybody's night. And, last Friday, our other senior captain, Cameron Pileski, scored 2 touchdowns, coming off an injury. A senior wide receiver, Lucas Roden, scored his first 2 touchdowns of the year. He caught 2 touchdown passes. Nate Chifo has been dynamic for us, whether it's in the return game or as a running back and on defense. John Frawley, another really good skill guy. Jermaine Smalls has been a tailback for us, who's been great, and our quarterback's been pretty steady. Zach Turbert, he's been pretty steady for a kid who's a first-year starter who didn't get his sophomore year, which is a huge development year, especially at that position. And like I said, there's 9 guys. Nate Florio scored a touchdown the other night. He usually plays free safety for us, but he got some burn on offense. So we've had a lot of contributions from a lot of guys in the skill position groups. And then, of course, our linemen, they've been really, really solid. My line coach would get really mad if I say publicly that the linemen have played well, but we have some guys, Nate Mathis, David McDonald's our tight end, and he fits in that group. Cole Snyder's our fullback, who's a sophomore, and he's been really good for us. And just across the board, we have a lot of guys playing, a lot of rotations going on. And again, I think I have some talented kids, but there's nobody that jumps off the page. Like there's nobody that you're thinking to yourself, wow, like look at this kid.
Right.
Eye test and all that stuff. They just do. They play really well together, and there's no egos, and they understand that, hey, tonight might be Cam's night. Tonight might be, Zach's night. And the offensive line and the defensive lines, they all understand that, when they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, the team is successful.
There's a lot of lawn mowers on the team. There's a lot of guys mowing.
We have a landscaping company,
There it is.
Well, that's kind of like your thing, right, John? You do you do home building, right? What's your?
I'm a carpenter.
Right, you're a carpenter.
I teach carpentry at the high school.
Oh, cool. That's right.
Yeah. But I'm a carpenter. Well, some people would let me say I'm a carpenter, but.
Yeah. You've been Mr. Branford through and through. I mean, tell us a little about, like, you played for Lenny Bond, who was there forever. And how's Lenny doing?
He's doing great. Southern? Yeah, he's kicking game coordinator at Southern. I do get a chance to talk to Coach Bond quite a bit, during the course of the year. So he's great. I mean, he's a good man, and I certainly learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
Even when my coaching career started, just at that time, he was on the defensive side of the ball at Southern, coaching linebackers and, X's and O's and all that stuff, but also just, as a player, how to carry yourself and what you're supposed to be doing and what's kind of important. I think Coach Bond had a lot to do with it. I think Coach Tracy had a lot to do with it. I think Coach Gravina had a lot to do with me wanting to stay and be part of it. And I think, a lot of the guys that I played with, and those are guys I still talk to pretty much every day. And, they're my best friends. And when COVID will, finally allow me to get married, they're all in my wedding party. And, I think that's part of it, for me is wanting to do something special because it was so special to us, it's a little bit of a Bruce Springsteen story days
there are a lot of good coaches in Branford. A lot of you guys came out of there, and there were some really good teams. And obviously, like after Lenny stepped away, went to Southern, and then you had Gary show up, and all of a sudden you had Kenny and that whole crew having like just this amazing run. And Kenny graduates, then Branford wins the state championship in 2005, which was the most unbelievable, like where this team come from, state championship I've still ever heard. I mean, that was over East Lyme. It was like one of the ugliest games ever. But you speaking of you went to Marist, right?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
A lot of good coaches came out of there. You're talking about, Mike Drury.
Yeah, I mean, I played with both Mike and Kevin. We were around the same time. I didn't play. I was a scout team guy. I played 2 years there. Mike was an incredible player. I was actually Kevin's host when he came up for a recruiting visit. Nice. Kevin Fredericks at Maloney. So, we were there at the same time. I didn't exactly light the world on fire as a college football player. I'm not going to have any delusions of grandeur here. But I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of good people and learn a lot, and just even some of the guys that are colleagues now in the league.
What made you decide that you wanted to become Branford's head coach? What were you doing at the time? And what did I'm going to try this.
Honestly, it's pretty funny. I recently have found an article that was written when I was a senior. I was looking for something else at my mom's house because there was, we did some stuff for 9/11 this year. We had 20 years, and that was my senior year.
Yep.
And I was looking through some of the stuff my mom kept over the years. And in particular, I was looking for this candlelight vigil that we did against Notre Dame 3 days after 9/11. I was speaking to some kids in the school, and I wanted to show them, hey, I was you, whatever. But right. I found an article, and in the article, I was like 17, whatever I was, getting ready to play East Haven my senior year. And it was like sports person of the week kind of thing in the local paper. John Steady wrote the column. Steady. And in the column, it says, like, I'd like to come back here and do what Coach Tracy did and be a coach here. I don't know if being the head coach was really ever the thing. I was Mike's defensive coordinator, and that was pretty awesome. I enjoyed being a coordinator quite a bit.
Right. You don't have to deal with us.
Headaches,
you don't have to deal with any. Yeah.
I don't have to talk to you guys, and I don't have to worry about scheduling practices and
you just coach.
People getting mad at you. You're just worried about football. But I think when the opportunity came up, it was just it felt right at the time. I was pretty young when I got the job. I think I was 29, but it's just a place that I care about a lot. And not just from a football standpoint, but some of the people that, have influenced me from Branford High School. It's not limited to football guys. We mentioned those guys, Coach Bond and Mike and Gary, certainly. But then, there's other guys, and Jake Paluzzi, Sav Sinodi, Jim McVeigh, who's, the greatest teacher on the planet.
Love Jim.
So these people are just, Dave Grunda. I could go on forever.
Yeah, it's a great town. It's a great town, Branford is, Coach.
Honestly, I should stop before I leave people out. Because,
that's why I'm trying to interrupt you.
Yeah,
but it's great.
It really is, though, and we learned a lot as kids and about how to be and what kind of person you wanted to be. And I just felt like those people had so much power and influence in my life that it would be nice to, pass that on to other kids, So that's why I'm here.
It's great. Like I said, it was kind of an interesting time, especially when you were when you were away at that time. But you're even your senior year and onwards, and then Gary takes over. You had Craig Kenny come in, and then Craig Kenny. What was he, a sophomore by the time you were a senior, or was he?
Craig was a freshman. He started for us. His brother Mark. His brother Mark was our starting defensive tackle, who's all state. Who's Mark graduated with me. We lost him sadly, but there was a brotherhood and a culture there that I think we all really loved. And even though the results weren't great at times, I mean, they got great for a while. We went on a really good run. And that 05 team too, you know, I have a lot of those guys on my staff that played on the 05 team. You know, Kyle Lynch right now is one of the guys that's on my staff who does a really great job for us. I had EJ Saddleberger on my staff for a long time. I was a starting linebacker for that team and played tight end. He's pursuing some stuff in school, so we don't have him this year, getting his master's and all that. So, you know, we've missed him, but those guys they had a thing, you know. My first full-time year coaching was 2005. So those guys had a thing. And if you ask them, they would tell you that the thing that got them to the state title was, you know, when they were sophomores, they were the scout team against one of the best teams in the state. And every day they had to play against Craig Kenny and Kyle Morrison and all those guys. And my offense coordinator right now is Patrick Keefe, who was starting defensive end on that 04 team. He was a good player. And, you know, he's another guy. I mean, just the program has meant a lot to us. And we have a lot of guys that coach with us that are, you know, Branford guys, because it matters to us, you know.
The most amazing thing I remember about that 2005 team was that was supposed to be New Canaan's championship that year with Kirk Casale as a junior, you know, and then East Line upset him. I forget the kid's name, but he kicked like a 80-yard field goal that gets longer and longer every time I hear about it. But think about it. But it's like he kicked like a 50-yard field goal to beat them at Dalling Field, which might be the last time they lost there, to be honest with you, in the playoffs. And that like cleared the whole bracket up. And the East Line was good too. And let's not forget, everyone's kind of like East Line. And I remember who was that kid that was on East Line? There was a kid there.
Tim Allen was running back.
Yes, that's him. And you guys, it was like but there was a slugfest in that 2005 championship.
If I like to break those guys, you know, I like to break it off on those guys because it goes to show you that 05 team, those kids worked tirelessly and they just believed they could win, you know. And I don't know, I think I was like 20 or 21 coaching.
And it didn't have Craig Kenny. He graduated. That team lost the final the year before. So nothing was expected of him. Right.
We had Jim Balzano, who was tremendous, and Mike Mortali. I mean, there was a lot of good players on that.
Right, but nobody really thought, John, that, you know, Balzano, you know, like nobody was like, you know.
But one of the interesting things, and I was coaching, but I was like minimal role. I mean, I think I was a volunteer, maybe, you know, I think I held the ball bag. But, you know, one of the things with that team, and I think people forget these things sometimes, like you got to get a little luck. So that New Canaan East Line game that you're talking about, that was won on a 52-yard field goal or something crazy like that. That kicker got hurt on the ensuing kickoff.
Oh, did he?
If my memory serves me,
I don't remember, but go ahead.
And we win the game 14-7 in the state final at West Haven, and it's like one of those things where you know you start saying, well, you know, they were in the red zone a few times. What if they still had their kicker who could kick 52-yarders?
Just looking it up, it was Pedro Belinchon. He had a 51-yarder and a 49-yarder.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Weiss kicked the extra point on East Line's touchdown. So he was hurt.
Yeah.
And in that game, Branford went up 14-0 in the first quarter and won 14-7. So that must have been very fun on that sideline the whole time, being like, we need to score again. We cannot let them score.
I don't remember much from that game. It was cold. And I remember Jim Balzano, our quarterback, who had gotten great. He was great. And he had gotten pretty banged up during one of the games, and he was trying to play through an injury, and at halftime he was like visibly upset, and I was like, Jim, like, what's going on? Is your ankle hurt? And he's like, nah, coach, I just want to win so bad. And those were the kinds of kids that we had. I mean, like I said, I mean, I can go through. We've had a lot of great kids over the years. We really have. We've had some pretty good football teams too. I mean,
you guys have been, you've had some good, like you said, you've had some good runs here. I mean, you haven't quite, gone over the top. And not putting that aside, what would it mean for you as a coach to have an opportunity to take these guys into a playoff atmosphere, maybe even at McVay Field? Maybe.
Well, I think, it's what you shoot for. I think I think every team in the state has the same goals in the beginning of the season. You know, you want to have a winning season, you want to try to make the playoffs, and you want to potentially win a championship. And in August, everybody thinks they can do that. Yeah. And you're supposed to think that way, you know. So for us right now at 5-1, I mean, and again, coaches speak aside, it's just the way I'm wired. One goal at a time. So if we play Avon, we're playing Avon in 2 weeks. The goal
and they are ahead of you in the standings. So this is like an opportunity here. This is a big, it's a game you never would have ever thought about. Go ahead.
I haven't looked at the standings. It's honestly, I haven't.
Sorry.
I haven't. It's too early. It's too early. Things happen, and plus there's a lot of math involved. And I told you guys before, I'm a wood shop teacher, so like I'm not right. I'm not really interested in all the math. But right now, for me, sitting at 5-1, and we're in a good spot, and we certainly have a good opportunity to do some good things.
I will say that they're in the same division with you, and by beating them, it would make your lives easier. That's all I'm saying.
And all I would add is that two teams who are also in positions are playing each other this week.
Yep. And you also beat another one.
And you beat another one, and there's another one that's kind of in there that'll help you, but we won't get into specifics.
We won't get into it at all. No, forget it. So
here's the most specific thing I can give you guys. If we beat Avon in 2 weeks, we guarantee ourselves a winning season. And that's where my brain is first. And then you can get to the next part. In 2018 and 2019, again, not a math guy. I think we're like one win. I think 7-3 would have got us in both those years. And this year, it's just you gotta do the go 1-0 thing, which you should do every year anyway. But that's the truth of it right now.
Would you like to kind of get this program to a point where you're playing like SEC Tier 1, like North Haven, playing like the the Hands and the, or do you think you guys are where you should be about, in the middle of the, or actually you're in the 3, but where do you think?
I like the way I like the way it's set up, because I do like that it does allow for movement. Mm-hmm. I think, of course, you want to be considered one of the best teams in the SEC and in the SEC and the FCAC. I mean, I don't think you can argue between those two conferences, over the last, since I've been coaching. But I don't think there's any debate that those are the two best conferences in the state of Connecticut. So if I make people mad with that, I'm sorry. That's what I've experienced.
Wow,
we always make people mad on this show.
But the point of the matter is, of course, you want to be considered one of those top flight programs, and for a lot of reasons. But I say this to my kids all the time: like when they're done and it's 5-10 years down the road, and
they're sitting at Donovan's Reef,
and they want to be
Tommy
proud.
Sullivan.
Either one is a good choice, but honestly. I think I want the kids to be proud of what they built, Do
you see yourself, John, in that type of, like guy teaches at the school, teaches that's a good course you teach. So you teach, some good skills there. But could you see yourself doing like Farazi, being there like, 2 decades, maybe even you're almost through one. Or Sagnella, who's been there like through almost 30 years. I mean, can you see yourself doing that?
I think I don't think I'm going anywhere for a bit. I mean, I do have some goals that I set for myself when this whole thing started that I'd like to try to achieve, and I'm enjoying it. Last year was really hard. Really, really hard.
You had some good kids last year.
Yeah. I mean, we had a good team and we had a lot of great kids, and but I think if we made it through that thing, and maybe that's why I feel the way I do about this season, where I'm kind of not sure. I think maybe I'm just enjoying the fact that every Friday we go out and play a game, and on Saturday morning I have film to watch of the next opponent, and we're just preparing, and we're playing. So maybe that's the deal. But last year was really, really hard. because there's really no right or wrong way to approach it. And you're trying to do the right thing, and you don't want your kids, you don't want to lose your kids. And you know, when it's very obvious that we're not going to play, what do? Do you start working on, you know, the 2021 season, or do you recognize that your seniors have given you everything they've had for the last 4 years and try to do as much as you can for them? And I'm never going to feel like I did enough for those guys. You know, some of it just wasn't in the cards, you know? So as far as staying for a while, I think if I could get through last year, I think I can stay and do this for a while. You know, my stepson is 10 and he's playing on the fifth grade team right now. And we got a lot of kids in youth football, and there's a really good buzz going on about football. And it's not just, I don't think it's just because we're doing well. I think we're doing well in part because of, there seems to be a growing passion, more so than other years in town, about football. And I think part of that was COVID. I think there people missed it. You know, our student section's full every Friday, and they stay the whole game, regardless of the score. And I think that was something they missed, you know, not being able to go do those things. And it's been cool. I you know, if there was a positive, that's what I would say. But you know, there's been a good atmosphere. So yeah, I'd like to stay. And if that brings us to tier 1 and we got to go, I mean,
so be it, right? So be it. I mean, what the heck?
Well, like I say all the time, you know, whenever anyone asks, and the schedule is such a point of contention for everybody, I just count to see if there's 10, and then go from there, because it's really not something I can control. So you never know, though. You never know what the schedule is going to bring, and you just got to keep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not worry about it.
Well, nobody. Well, few towns get behind their teams like Branford. You know, like Branford does when their teams are, you know, on the cusp of doing something great. I've seen it firsthand. I mean, I witnessed the Kenny years. I was at the Connecticut Post, but after a lot of games, we would all come flying back here to Branford and go hang out at Tommy Sullivan's until they closed. That was back in the old day with John Steady and all those gang, and Gary, all the Branford staff would show up, and we'd like quiz them on, oh my God, you guys beat Shelton that week and stuff. So I know, you know, there was a buzz then, and, you know, if you win, there becomes a buzz around you guys too. And I think you're starting to get to that point. I know it's a long way to go, but
yeah. And I think the important thing too is like that our kids understand that that's part of success. Like that's one of the things that comes with success. So you can't let that derail you. You know, I said this earlier, like you can't treat a game like, oh, we're an underdog or we're a favorite or, hey, this is a really tough game. If our kids continue to do that, which is to just, hey, anybody can beat anybody, and we just have to prepare for this game and just do our job and control the things that we're in control of, you know, football coach speak, keep your pad level down and drive your legs and all that stuff we've been hearing in every football movie since forever.
Yeah, right.
If they can do those things, then all that hype and buzz and excitement is just an interesting byproduct of success, you know. It definitely adds to it, but we certainly think you guys can do it. It's a great season so far, obviously. We wish you guys nothing but best of luck the rest of the way, and we promise we won't talk too much more about your chances in the Class A playoffs. So. Well, hey man, like I said earlier, if the kids are reading Game Time instead of their game plans, then it's not.
Yeah, they're
matter,
in big trouble.
You know?
All I'll say one more time, coach, is beat Avon, okay? Beat Avon. That's 2 weeks after your next game. That's a very easy one to remember, right?
That's it. Just next. That's it.
There you go.
And that's it.
We will not jinx you guys on this show again. I promise.
Yeah. No, jinx is you know, we jinx ourselves. You know, you gotta just go out.
Right. Pete was on the Branford bandwagon, and then he fell off somewhere. Some wheel fell off or something. He was all over it. Well, now it's nothing to do with you.
That did get mentioned to the team the other day, so that's, you know, I can thank Pete for that now 2 years later. You know,
Oh, yeah. Well, it was that. It was the preseason 19 pick. Then it was the Thanksgiving pick. I think I picked East Haven. I'm on fire with Branford right now.
Hey, yeah, that wasn't. Yeah, I don't know, Pete. I don't know what to tell you, but
Well, jump on now, Pete, because the train's leaving the station.
No, I don't want to jump on. I don't because I want to stay far away because they're doing better without me.
All right.
we don't have any room for passengers.
All
We're
right.
just
bandwagon's full, folks.
We're gonna ride the little yellow school bus. We're gonna ride the regular good old fashioned yellow school bus up to Avon and hopefully play well enough to win.
It's a nice trip and a nice field, and you guys will have some fun.
You guys
there,
making the trip on Friday to watch them play Farmington first?
Yeah.
They played Farmington last week. They play Hartford Public this week.
Oh, our Hartford Public. You guys
a
going
good
to see them?
So I hopefully are gonna try. That's we have practice and all that, and
yeah,
fields are tight in Branford too. That's one thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Field
all right,
time
well,
is so.
Either way, we wish you all the success in the world, and great start so far. We appreciate you joining us here, and and to give us a little insight on your kids, and away we go. Here we go. It's almost go times, John. So appreciate you.
We're getting there. We are getting there. So I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, John. Appreciate it.
So, Pete, that was John Limone. Doesn't want to talk playoffs. Well, let me tell you, John, you're right in the thick of things. I'm telling you. I know it just kills me. He doesn't want to hear it. They win that Avon game. You could pencil the Hornets in for the most part. I know a lot can happen, but I would say the money would be on the Hornets. A lot can happen, but.
Yeah, I mean, Guilford is a game we thought they should have won 2 years ago. Obviously, completely different teams.
Could lose that.
Law's not bad. In East Haven, I mean, that game is kind of always a good one on Thanksgiving, though Branford has won, in my recollection, the last two, keeping East Haven out of the playoffs. So, they're in control of their own destiny, which is always a good thing. And if you're an SEC team and you get into Class M, I would not be happy if I was a Pequot school.
No.
Or, Killingly in the ECC. Because you look at it right now, you got Killingly in the ECC, you got Plainville as the CCC team, then you got Pequot, SEC, Pequot. So I'm actually incorrect. Avon is a CCC member now, not a Pequot member. They were when I started. But the point remains, you don't want an SEC team crashing this party. And there's the potential of two of them in Branford. And we both agree that Notre Dame West Haven, if they could beat West Haven this week, they got Xavier, then Hand, who's not, having a Hand type season. I think this is a good chance for Notre Dame to get in here at 7-3, if they can get in. And then if they're in, watch out. Them and Branford could really spoil the party here for the smaller conference schools.
Moving quickly at a Class S, Bloomfield's kind of, like I said, a team the coaches are still saying we should watch out for. Ansonia, New Fairfield, has a big win, a big game versus Massac this week. We'll make that on the picks, but that will go a long way. Their schedule now is Notre Dame, Fairfield after that, then Newtown and New Milford. By no means is New Fairfield going to maybe, out of the woods yet. In fact, their season is just getting started. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Massac. If they can win that game, it'll go a long way in providing a cushion at least. But cushions are not what you need in Class S. You need to win. And unfortunately, they're going to need some help there if they don't win more than, if not all of them, then at least most of them, 3 of them. So, and that's a tall order, and then probably unfortunate too. Cromwell Portland, they're 5-0. They're playing Granby Canton this week. Another big game we didn't really mention, but if Cromwell Portland, that could be curtains right there for Granby Canton. Who knows? Holy Cross, they're playing Naugatuck this week. Another big game in Class S. So, a lot can happen here. Notre Dame Fairfield, they're playing Lyman Hall this week. They should win that. But they also have New Fairfield the week after. So New Fairfield has a chance to make some things move there. Morgan, Coventry, North Branford, Ellington, Old Saybrook. I see them winning all those games, Morgan. But, again, not going to get a lot of points there. So we'll see what happens there. Ledyard is the last team we'll talk about. Losing to Stonington. My goodness. I guess the defense is still good, but they need a healthier outlaw.
Yeah, you look at their schedule the rest of the way. That Woodstock Academy game at the beginning of the year didn't look like anything special, and now you're looking at, can they lose 2 games? And they got Fitch.
Yeah, Fitch at the end there.
I mean, it went from Ledyard's going to go 9-1 or 10-0 and get in, and now you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, they'd be lucky to go 7-3.
And look out down below, Sheehan, also sitting there, Hill House, Hamden, Hartford Public, and Lyman Hall. I think Sheehan would be favored in many of those games.
I think they should be favored in all those games.
You think they're going to win?
Look, the thing about Hamden was tough for them 2 years ago when they had, Terrence and Jordan and Simmons, the quarterback. Like, that was a tough game. They had to come back, and they kind of pulled away late. Anytime net school plays a double O school, it's hard. And but we all picked Sheehan to lose to Amity in their double O school, and Sheehan won. So I think I've learned my lesson on betting against the fight for Aussies.
It's going to be it was a wild week last week and a wild week coming up this week. You have number 7 Ridgefield at Wilton. You have number 6 New Canaan at number 3 Greenwich. Number 2 St. Joseph at number 1 Darien, and that's just Saturday. You have number 9 Shelton playing Newtown at home, and you have Norwalk and number 8 playing host Staples in a big game, and Hall's playing Glastonbury. That's probably and Hall and Branford Prep on the sidelines this week, but not for very long because they got big games coming up. My God, B, I'm like, my head is spinning.
Yeah, it's this is a big weekend. We're going to see shake up in the playoff rankings. We're going to see we're going to see things shaking up in the top 10 poll. Just got to take a breath and try and get through it.
Yeah, that's the best thing we do. I'm going to take a big breath here and say that's going to be it for a jam-packed Meat Rider at GameTimeCT. Pete's got to go do some stuff with St. Joseph. Lots of stuff going on the website. Don't forget that this is a live action version that goes up on YouTube, usually Wednesday morning. So check that out if you haven't. A lot of coaches said they haven't. Lots of highlights and goodies there. Thanks for John Limone for joining us. Thanks to Jeff Jacobs. It's Darien versus St. Joseph. This has been the Meat Rider on GameTimeCT. And happy Halloween, everybody.
Love you.